It is an advantage, no questions about it, about traveling abroad. Any person
Right.
can be a contact.
Am I going to miss my family in India? Am I going to miss my extended family in India? And I've seen many people who decide to go back.
Yeah.
I respect their decision.
It's not just about education that you're pursuing when you move overseas. It's about everything. Like you basically take care of yourself.
Okay, welcome to Higher Horizon, the podcast where we decode the future of education. In today's episode, we are talking about the most, what would you say, the biggest question in Indian households that parents are asking today is it still worth to send us to kids out of India to study? So let's dive right into it. Let's start with the biggest elephant in the room, the investment, the return on investment, the money. What do you guys think? Foreign degrees, especially from the US and the UK, why do they still attract so many students even after the rising cost of the tuition fees? Let's start with someone who's already been to the US or the UK, or any other countries. Maybe we can start with Anup here. Why do you think? Because I think you're also from a computer science background, aren't you?
Yeah. Thanks, Amini. Yeah. So I live in Canada. So I moved to Canada in 2021. My main intention was to I saw it more like an investment, and I wanted to like upskill and land into senior roles once I finish my master's over here in Canada. Well, when it came to the curriculum, of course, it was pretty well structured and it was more project based, and I got to do a lot of like you know projects that could be beneficial for me after I even landed a job in Canada. So, which on a later point of time, I realized that I could have even pursued those with some online training as well, right? So, uh, but it took me about 5 to 6 months after my graduation as well to like even land a job in Canada. Um Definitely, we go through a phase of learning. There is setbacks. There is like new lifestyle. Everything comes in picture once you move to a different country, right? But on the points of return on investments, if you ask me, it's more like long term. It's definitely not you finish your course and immediately you land a job and you're able to make money and also clear off your education loans in just 1 year. It does take quite a bit of time to get into a secured position and also overcome your financial investments that you've made. Yeah.
Um, with return on investment, do you think right now the students that are thinking about doing this in this day and age, is this still viable? Would you suggest anyone, especially
Like,
changing rules, especially even in Canada as well, right?
yeah,
There are that are changing, right?
yeah. Being really honest, at this point of time, if somebody called up asking, is it a good time for me to move to Canada and pursue their education here, I would still I'll be like, it's not very convenient at this point of time, considering the mass recession and the caps that's especially coming up right now. So there's been a huge number of students who moved in 2023 and above. There were over 1 million people who actually moved to Canada, and they were IRCC were giving off student permits like all of the colleges were pretty much full. And there came a point when they realized that, the immigration was not up to the point. And considering the number of students finishing up their course, there was also a backlog of people wanting to stay in the country as well, right? People want to extend their work permits, want to apply for permanent residencies and stay longer in Canada. But consider when the caps came up, there was a very higher number that also there was like a lot of students stopped applying for countries like Canada and United States when the caps were put in place.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. But it's not just the tuition fees, right? When we are deciding, even students are deciding to go abroad and study. It's also about the life after the degree, right? So
Yeah,
post-pandemic and post-layoffs, how have job opportunities for international students changed? Uh,
yeah, yeah. Very good
that,
question. I think.
yeah, you
Sorry.
can go. Go, go,
Yeah,
go.
sorry. Yeah. So I think considering the recession that came in place, so when I came in 2021, I graduated in 2022. So the average number of months, if you ask me now, is literally going up to an year. So fortunately, when I finished my graduation, through day and night when I was applying for jobs, I used different sources like LinkedIn and Indeed. So I had a pattern of how I was applying for jobs and how I did my interviews. Versus now, the number of people who actually graduated with me at around that time have like I would just say like maybe like 12 to 13% of them would have landed there on field, like really with the course that they pursued, they landed in that particular field jobs. Like most of the other students who graduated along with me are just probably doing various odd jobs, working in Walmarts, coffee shops, just to pay off their education loans, right? It's kind of really hard to see how the mass recession and the IT sector itself is affected now to even get an entry level job for say that in that context, just to get an entry level job is also being very difficult right now. So yeah, I think I think most of the companies now are preferring for someone with skill as compared to their master degrees when it comes for getting into a technical role. Yeah.
Leo, what do you think about the design sector or the animation field in this same regards post the pandemic? Is it kind of the same for you as well?
Yeah, well, it's an industry that, first of all, has always had its difficulties. Like in my case, I am from Mexico, and when I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to study this animation and design in the US, I was hopeful. I'm still are but I was very hopeful. Like, yeah, I'm gonna graduate. I'm gonna land a job at Pixar, Disney, and over time in college, you get to realize that everyone eventually will have their own story. Everyone will have and will go through their own branches. So only at the end, only after graduation, it hits you. Like you realize, okay, some people are not gonna get that far. Some people are gonna succeed and find the jobs they were looking for. And I would say if I have to give a percentage of success being defined the people who land their dream job in an animation studio, graphic design firm, architecture firm, I would have to say around 25% are the ones. So there is a chance to land a job in the design field, in the animation field. But you really, really have to put in the effort. You really, really having to put in the effort. I would say that that percentage has decreased now a little bit with AI. There is hope. There is an opportunity. There are people who need people in this. There are companies that seek this talent. It's just a little bit harder now.
Mm.
And that is harder not just for international students, that is harder for everyone, right? So
Mhm.
Leo now does not have that limitation of being restricted by student work permits. Even though he has a permanent work permit, permanent resident work permit, he still doesn't, it still is hard, right? It's hard for everybody. In fact, we realized that one of our colleagues who was a US citizen, but he was born in India, he came to the US to find an opportunity similar to what Leo was talking about. after spending a year in the US, he realized that there are more opportunities for him in India. So in spite of being a US citizen who grew up in India but actually was born in the US, he returned to India and is doing a job of similar job, the kind of job he wanted to do in India, but he could not find one here in the US.
Yeah.
Like
In
the
fact,
similar you said, right? Everyone has their own branches and everyone will go their own way.
Yeah,
ex
many times in the US, people are a lot more open to pivot. It is not
Mhm.
necessary that you'll find a job exactly in the field that you have studied, because when
Right.
you studied it, it may have been a hot field at that time. Because of changes in market dynamics, something is hot today, it may not be hot tomorrow, right? No,
Mhm.
hardware jobs, engineering, electrical engineering jobs were so hard to find in mid 2000s. And before that, anyone who had anything to do with silicon would get a job. But majority of the hardware companies relocated to China, South Korea, and many other places. So the hardware jobs kind of disappeared from the US. And the engineers who had hoped to join hardware industry, most of them pivoted to join the software industry. They picked up the skills and they were willing to take new skills. And if you go to any large company right now, say whether it is Microsoft, Oracle, say Google, and even in their very senior principal engineer roles, and you ask them what was the degree you had, what did you do in college, did you do computer science, you will find many of them are not computer science people, many of them are electrical engineering
Exactly.
people, they are mechanical engineering people, but they were willing to pivot and they did quite well, they did as well as the ones who had done computer science, but mostly by self-study and doing whatever it takes to get the job done. And when you spend years and years doing what you need to, gaining the skills you need to do the job, you get as good as someone who may have degree in that same field.
Mhm.
Yeah. I totally agree with you on that, Vishal. So, one of the examples that I've seen here in Canada, my cousin brother was he was a data engineer in Canada. So he came pre-COVID, and I think he just basically moved as a permanent resident to Canada back in 2018 or 19, I believe. So I think he just had his bachelor's back then, and he once he moved to Canada, he worked up for very good companies for over 3 or 4 years. Eventually, the way he paced himself within his career was just doing multiple certifications. It was more about him exploring Azure side of the technologies, doing some certifications that where he could showcase them on his portfolio. He was able to get better jobs as he did that. Yeah.
And I think that's the most healthy mindset. Like, just don't give
Yeah.
up. Just adapt to the situation. Get
Yeah.
whatever you want. Just be resilient. Be resilient
Yeah.
and learn, because you never know, if you pivot, you might end up liking another thing more than what you originally came from. You might actually enjoy more
Yeah.
learning new things and being stubborn about um, what I originally planned to do in the first place.
Yeah, I think as you everyone is mentioning, it's a lot to do with the mindset. The outcomes are not binary in the way that sometimes it's put out to be. But if you have the right mindset of making those choices, pivoting at the right time, and then having that emphasis on just acquiring skills and learning at the early part of your career, you can find yourself in a place. It may not be in the US, it may be outside, it could be anywhere, but that sort of goal setting a goal for yourself which is beyond the place where you want to be, more related to what you want to do, and also studying the environment and then modifying your goals and your mindset along with that plays an important role.
Totally.
Nicely, really nice. How big is a concern in the uncertainty around work visas like H-1B in the US? I think we can go with Vishal or Sachin here because you guys have been on that same path, right? Yours,
I can talk
how has
about
it changed right now?
it. I
Mhm.
think H-1Bs have become harder and harder over time, right? So anyone who comes to the US as a student visa on a student visa, my recommendation would be come knowing exactly what the landscape is before you make a decision to come. Many students come without knowing what the reality is. They feel like they got an admit from a college, and considering they have gotten an admit, everything will be sorted out either by the college or they will find a job and it will be sorted out by the employer. And many are still in an impression that if I do well and if I get a job at a big company, the visa is not an issue, the company will figure it out. The visa cannot be managed by the company if the numbers of visa are not available. Whether you are at Google or whether you are at a small startup, it doesn't matter. If there is a number that's available and you get picked in the lottery, you get it. If the number is not available and you don't get picked in the lottery, whether you are from Harvard University or University of Phoenix, it doesn't matter to the lottery doesn't care about it. It's a random pick. So someone from Harvard can be, may not get it and may have to go back, and someone from university of some other, low tier university might get it. So anyone who is coming here should first be aware of what the landscape is, and then figure out does it work for where they are in their career, or what their family dynamics are, and whether they're taking a loan or whether they have money that they can spend and they don't have to care about it being paid off right away. So every family's dynamics are different. They have to understand the risks and prospects also. So anyone who is coming to the US, first of all, they should come with an intention that I'm going to learn, I'm going to get this experience, I want to go back. If they come with that intention that I'm going to go back, if they like it here in the US and then they want to stay, and then if things work out and they get a job in the stipulated time that's given for someone to find a job, because if you don't find a job right away, you don't get the
Mhm.
work permit.
The
It's called the OPT, right?
the OPT.
And then there is something called OPT extension, which you get for
Yep.
2 years if you are in a technical field, that you don't get that also if you don't have a job. So let's assume that they came in, they did the two-year course or 1 year course or what have you, however long the course is. Then they got the OPT because they had a job. Then they got an OPT extension. They got a job because they had a job. And then during that time, the H-1B was filed. There's a good likelihood they may get it. There's a good likelihood they may not get it. But if they don't get it, at that point, they're not disappointed. They're not anxious, because when they came into the country, they came in with the mindset that I'm here to study, I'm here to get experience. If I like it, I will stay. If I don't like it, I'm going to go back. If I get an opportunity, if I like it and if I get an opportunity to stay, I'll stay. If I like it and if I don't get an opportunity, then I will go back and find a job in India or wherever I have the work permit. Then they will be happy, because in order for you to be successful, you need to first be happy and you need to have confidence. I've seen a lot of people come, they get so disappointed that they lose their confidence. They're unhappy, they're miserable. So there is no
Right.
point going to a new country if you have just, already in your mind planned some, imaginary life, which depends on so many variables which may not pan out. So let's take an H-1B, for example. First of all, when you are graduating from college, you have to find a job. Only then the OPT will come. And then when there are so many people available in the US also with the kind of skills that the employers are looking for, that's your first risk, especially with current situation. With the skills that I have already, am I going to be one of the candidates that's going to be picked from hundreds of other applicants that are going to be there? If you are coming right out of college and you don't have experience, the likelihood is less. But if you, after graduating from college in India, you got quality experience, then you went to college in the US, you're likely to do quite well, because if your degree, a master's degree, is related to what you studied if the master's degree is related to the area where you worked in India, then you can uh, connect the skills that you have gained in your experience to the in-depth skills, like why, you knew how it happened. Now you needed to know why it happens. Then you can connect the two with the knowledge of what you gain through your experience and with the knowledge of what you gain in masters. You're likely to be going to be a good, strong candidate. So in my experience, I have seen the ones who get the most benefit from master's degree coming into the US are not the ones who are just coming out of college and coming here. They are the ones who had experience in India, worked in the similar field as they did masters in the US, right?
Right.
So if you first is that you are going to be a strong candidate, you want to find a job. That's first is because majority of the students struggle right there because they won't have experience in India. Then they come here, they have all theoretical knowledge. Now they're competing with the people who have skills, especially with the ones who have gotten laid off recently in the recent times, tens of thousands of people. How do you stand out? You can only stand out when you have that working knowledge, which you can gain from some experience and some then in-depth knowledge that you gain in your masters. So let's consider now you got a job also. Then you get 3 attempts to get your H1B. If you look at 2 3 years prior, there used to be 6 times more applications for H1B than the number of applications that could be approved. So you had 6 times more people applying. So the chances were 1/6. But in the latest 2 years, things have improved because they found out there was a lot of fraud. The same applicant was applying many times, and this was mostly happening with consulting companies from other countries who wanted to serve their customers, and in order to do that they used to apply for the same employee. They would apply many different applications. They would spend that money, the application, they would pay multiple times the application fee, but in order to increase their odds of getting the visa, they would just apply 4 or 5 times for every same person.
Mhm.
So I read somewhere that there were around 400,000 extra applications. You can consider them as
Mhm.
fraudulent applications. They're not fraudulent in a way that they're not fraud people. It's just fraudulent in a way that they are duplicate applications. Considering those duplication applications have now been taken out, now there is a 20% probability of 20-25% probability of you getting an H1B. So even if you say 30%, so if you say 20-25% or 30% chance of getting an H1B, so if you have 3 chances of getting it, so you got 30% in first year, 30% in second year, 30% in third year, there's still more likelihood of someone not getting it than not getting it, right?
Mm.
So one third plus one third is like, what is that? Three, that's still 9 out of 10. That's still not 10
Yeah.
out of 10, right? So there's still a more likelihood of you not getting it than getting it. So this coming with this expectation that I'm going to try all of this. If I like it here and I want to stay, then I'm going to try all of this. But if it doesn't pan out, I am aware there's a possibility that I may have to go back. And you need to gain so much experience coming here that when you go back, all these years you have spent here are going to add towards the opportunity that you're gonna seek for in India, right? You don't want to be doing odd jobs like 2 years of, when you're in college, you're doing some on-campus placement job, working in a college cafeteria. Then you are just to stay on a valid visa, and you're doing some on-campus job in the college, which is not related to you getting some new expertise. So that's really, really, really valuable time lost. Right.
Right.
This situation will apply to majority of the people. Then if somebody is coming to a target school, right? Target schools are schools like, say, you're coming for masters at Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Then also you should come if you have intentions that if I get an opportunity here, I'll stay. If I don't have an opportunity, I'll go back. Because with this brand name, you'll get a job in India. You'll get a pretty good job in India with the brand name college that you've gone to, right? The target school you have gone to. It may take you a lot longer to pay off your loans, right? But you will be able to get a decent, good job, especially in multinational companies and senior management track positions, similar to what somebody from a top IIM would get, or some, kind of like that. So then also someone has to think about their finances. Will they be able to handle that kind of a loan with the expectation that I may have to pay off that loan using the Indian salary that I will expect? Or if you have family is willing to pay for it, that could be a different thing, right? So long story short, people should go abroad knowing exactly what the reality is, and consider not just the college time, also consider when I graduate, what is going to happen and what is the likelihood of each step happening. And when they look at it holistically, then they should make a decision about what is right for them and their family.
Yeah. I think one of the important things to just add on to what Vishal was saying is it's important that people don't get enamored by, social media lives of others and have a clear focus on their own situation and their own family, their own future. Because in the end, education is a means to building a life and not the end goal in itself. Because a lot of people I see seem to be sometimes lose the plot because they only thought as far as making it to the US and not any further. So that's something important. And for my own perspective, I see that it has been a long term trend. It's not something that something has changed in recent times. You could see it happening over the last 20, 30 years with a certain change that happened around the financial crisis as well, where the jobs were not coming, and then people who had moved with certain expectations were not meeting those expectations. But then there was a turnaround after a couple of years, around the time when I was able to go. But still, I mean, just thinking about the wait time for your green cards and the residencies is so long, it doesn't let you plan your life long term in terms of investments, in terms of maybe you want to buy a house or you want to take care of your family or think about your own family. These are tough decisions to make, and they kept getting tougher over the last 20 years, up till a point where some of these queues were getting unreasonable for to make any practical choices. So just like Vishal said, the if we have the focus on getting those skill set, getting yourself to a point where you would be indispensable for any company, that would be the right way, so that you are employable anywhere, and also sought out as a candidate anywhere.
Yeah, also people need to think about, okay, they came to the US, they got a job, they got their OPT extension, then they also got an H-1B, right? We talked about the probability of getting an H-1B being lower than one, but let's say you got the H-1B, because it's closer to one still if you get three attempts, but not maybe not one, but closer to one. But there's still possibility that some may not get it even after trying it for three attempts. Let's say you got it. Then people also need to be aware that after your H-1B, the H-1B has to be renewed every 3 years. It is a temporary work visa. And as soon as you lose the job in any company, there is a stipulated amount of time, I think 60 or 90 days. I'm not too sure. When I was on H-1B, there was no time. The day you got the unemployment, you could have been thrown out of the country right away. So people used to immediately rush to another job the next day, right? So now they have given some time to find, once you lose one job, you have to find another job, but it's not a lot of time. It could be 2 or 3 months. I'm not too sure about it, right? So, but you have, because it's a temporary visa, it's linked to as long as you have the employment, right? And then during that time, people apply for a green card. Green cards are issued based on the country of your birth. So every country has the same number of green cards every single year. It's called permanent residency card or green card or whatever you want to call it. So that means the country of, say, Sri Lanka, which hardly has population even smaller than a state of India, the Sri Lanka gets the same number of green cards as India does, right? Same number of green cards as China does, right? So smaller countries get the same number. So obviously you can imagine how much backlog there will be for India. And if people look at the current backlogs, they're saying that based on calculations, it can take 20 to 100 plus years in certain categories to get the green card,
Oh,
right?
Right.
Right. So now you are dependent on when other countries are going to apply. And once people from other countries have applied, is there going to be leftover from there? All the hope that Indians have is for leftover. If there is no leftover from other countries left, there is all going to be 100 plus years of wait. But if there is leftover, it's called a spillover. With the spillover, it may be reasonable amount of time, but you're still not expecting it to happen in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's going to take a long time. I think currently they are giving green cards to people who came here in 2012, no, who applied in 2012. The people who would have applied in 2012 would have been in the country for at least 7, 8 years minimum, because employers don't file the green card right away. They want you to be on H-1B for around 5 to 6 years because it's a big investment. So 2 years of being on, being a student, then 3 years on OPT, that's 5. Then 5 more years, say on H-1B, that's 10 years. So they would have applied 10 years after you come back. So right now they are doing 2012, right? It's 2025, right? So 20 years you're still looking at, even as of right now. So if things get worse, it can become worse. As people are expecting it will get worse because there has been no change in regulation and there are more and more people have come. So that also people have to keep in mind that it's going to take a long time for me to get a green card. And people also have to think about if they are getting married and they're getting a spouse, then what are going to be the restrictions for the spouse to come here, to work here. Spouse will be
Mhm.
able to come. And if you're marrying someone who is a professional, who has worked in India for a while and they have their own career, they want to build their own career. So they are not going to be happy coming here and not working because they went to a good school, they had a good job, they have aspirations. So that also people have to think about when they're coming in. Will they get the work permit right away? When there are ways to get a work permit for your spouse when you have applied for the green card, not right away. When you have applied, that also is a temporary executive order, and there have been many conversations about removing that altogether. So people should completely think about all of these realities and then decide on whether this is the right fit for them.
Right.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, please
Just
go.
as Vishal and Sachin were talking about like the uncertainties that may arise, right? So one of the main reasons that I was considering Canada was also like in comparison with US, it's really that you're in a state of mind of stress, and there's always anxiety as to when you might have to switch your job, or you might have to lose your you might get into that uncertainty that you will not have a job one fine day, and you're not finding another and be able to get another work permit of that sort. So that was one of the reasons that I considered Canada to be able to. So when you do a course in Canada for 2 years, you automatically get a 3-year work permit, right? And you are not required to work in the same field in
Mhm.
order to apply for your permanent residency. So the experience that you gain over here is something that adds up in to get points. So there is something called CRS points that we accumulate in order to get a total score. And based on that total score, the IRCC conducts different types of draws. And they can be like, for example, there could be a STEM draw, which is mostly for IT professionals, some IT technicians, or working in science and technology, for these kind of people who's applying for permanent residency, right? So once this 3-year work permit expires, you will get into the next step of get becoming the permanent resident of Canada, right? So what happened now at this current situation, I myself am in the same boat. So just post-COVID, Canada issued n number of applications for permanent residency. So there came a point where, they released something called TR to PR, which is temporary resident to permanent residency. So it was nothing but the ones who were in the work permit pool, they just had to write an English proficiency test, and no matter what course they did, no matter what experience they had, even if they didn't have experience, everybody were given an opportunity to get that permanent residency. So considering this mass number of people who already got permanent residency, now it created a huge impact for the ones who moved after COVID, especially after 2021. Even the ones who are deserving, who came up with the dreams that, as Vishal said, the most people who are successful here are the ones who have gained some experience in India and have pursued some relevant master degree or post graduation here in Canada or in anywhere in North America. Uh, and getting also landing into a same field job, and stepping up in their career as they go through, right? So now, although people are deserving, but because of the number of applicants who have already gotten their permanent residency, now there is a cap even for the ones who want to stay longer here and build their life over here, and still they don't have a chance because the immigration is completely upside down right now, and they're bringing measures, but it's very uncertain. We don't know when that gets back to normal now. Yeah,
That was going to be my next question because the immigration laws are so strict in the US. I had that question like, are students, Indian students especially, are they thinking of other countries as safer bets, like say Canada or Germany or Australia? I've heard that even in Germany, there are like some work visas where if you have some experience, especially in the tech background, you can come there, stay there for 1 year, find a job, and then get a permanent residency. Um,
yeah,
I was in Australia, so I know that there's a huge demand for civil engineering graduates
right.
and nurse, like healthcare professionals and uh, there was one more other thing which I'm forgetting. These two, three main industries are in super high demand. Even if you just graduate, like if I've graduated today with a civil engineering degree, I can get my PR tomorrow. Like it's that
Yeah,
fast. But if it's for some other industry professionals, they just have to wait so much.
yeah.
And yeah, that's how it is. But do you guys think, Leo, what do you think? Are there people going out from Mexico, or is Mexico a good study option? Is the curriculum there? Are there a lot of Indians there as well? Is
No.
it attractive? No?
No, I don't think so. Yamini, I don't think so. I don't re yeah, well, to be fair, I did not study my col I didn't study I was not in college in Mexico, so I don't have firsthand knowledge on that. But I have a gut feeling that no, not many Indians have considered Mexico. Maybe a
Mm.
few, but I wouldn't say it's a significant amount at all.
Did
That Hmm?
did you ever consider these other countries for your higher education?
And no, actually, no. I as a Mexican, the US is so appealing because it's literally above us. It's like the number one choice for all kinds of anything for studying abroad, for shopping, for the tourist, for doing touristy things. So in my case, it was a decision that was always on the top of my mind, and I never considered other choices at all. I don't know. It just didn't occur to me that I could expand my search. However, I did know the industry. I knew that California is the birth of, it's not the birth of animation, but it is the mecca of animation and design for many people. I just naturally gravitated, and I was very lucky that a series of life conditions just happened to align correctly and ended up there. I have no doubt there are amazing countries out there for these kinds of needs. I think you are right. I think we should expand our horizons and consider all the countries, not just the United States. But in my case, it was a very easy choice for me. Um, I've been traveling to the US for all my life, and uh, and and I was able to um, study and find jobs, and now I have a stable life here.
That's good. Um, let's pivot to the other side. Let's talk about, as we talk about students that are going abroad, is it worth asking, is India stepping up? Like, is it catching up to the higher education system? I've seen that Deakin University, that's actually in Australia, they've opened a branch in Ahmedabad in Gujarat in India. And they offer like these hybrid models where you study here for 2 years and then do the rest of the course in Australia or somewhere else. It's not just Deakin University. There are other universities as well that are offering these hybrid models. What do you guys think about colleges or institutions that are offering these, and are these courses also uh, worth it for Indian students? Because if you see, they are really cheaper compared to the
Yeah.
full-fledged US course or a Canada course or Australia course. So, what do you guys think?
Yeah, it's
Like, yeah.
I have a very different take on it than most people. I believe that if you are getting into tech, my focus is going to be primarily on tech. If you are getting into tech, um, whether you go to any school in India or whether you go to any school anywhere in the world. The school is not going to make as much of a difference as you studying on your own. If you have the skills, whether you have a high school diploma or you have a PhD, as long as you have the skills, you can get the same job. And there are many ways to show to your employers that you have the skills. Majority of the top tier companies have even dropped the requirement for you to have a bachelor's degree. And if you can pass their test, do well in their interviews, have done enough open source contributions to show your progression of being a decent engineer to an exceptional engineer, no degree will match your body of work. Rather than focusing on chasing degrees, you should try to focus on creating your body of work, which you can do and publish on GitHub and let other people utilize it, right? Contribute on existing projects that may already be on GitHub. Try different coding competitions and try to succeed in them. Learn competitive programming. So in tech, it does not matter what school you went to. In tech, what matters is what skills do you have. So the students should think and reflect on, is there a kind of knowledge that is unique to a particular college? Or is that same knowledge available to me on Coursera, on edX, or Udemy, Udacity? Will I be able to get them without going to college? Can I learn it on my own, right? So that's for tech. But if you are trying to get into management consulting, if you're trying to be a lawyer, if you are trying to be an accountant at a very top tier accounting firm, considering your services are going to be rendered to somebody else, your employer is usually not going to be utilizing your services. Your employer is going to hire you to provide services to third party. There, they want you to have an exceptional resume because they're going to sell you as sell your services. They're going to market you as a person to a third party, and they want to charge top dollar for it, hundreds of dollars, $400, $500 an hour. So it helps them to show that you have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree from a top tier college. So if you are in any one of those fields and if you can get into one of the top tier colleges, which are target schools like Harvard and Cambridge and Oxford and Yale and Columbia, then absolutely go for it. But as far as tech is concerned, it doesn't matter whether you get a degree or don't get a degree, whether you are in India or came to US. What matters is how much you know.
No, yeah, that's true. Um, I think it kind of saves up a bit on your financial end. For someone who's going to do full time in United States or in Canada, they would be paying a lot more when they're going to do this on campus, right? As compared to doing it hybrid. So probably they would be saving up on that financial side of it a bit. And another advantage, from my experience, I feel is like you kind of build network when you're in person with your like instructors. They who knows, there could be a chance where you might even get a referral if you're outstanding in showcasing your work, right? At least for me, I've noticed that it's quite helpful. Um, so that's one of the advantages I've come to learn when it comes for
Yeah.
hybrid models.
I think as Anup
Yeah.
mentions, this amount that you may. So I also noticed there's, I think, Liverpool University who's looking to set up campus in Bangalore, and I think there are about 10 to 15 on the line. I think one possibility that may come out of it is they probably bring in the structure and the systems from their origin countries, which then adds to the competition in our colleges, and they will need to step up, their game in terms of how they provide education, the lab facilities. So that competition, I think, will be positive. And from a student point of view, living expenses do add up to quite a bit when you're doing it
Right.
abroad. So that's, I mean, living close to home, but getting something similar in quality may be useful. But yeah, I mean, the same amount that you invest, if have the mindset, you could try to invest in yourself and, gain those skills and the real world experience and maybe even cross, the outcomes of what that college could provide to you.
work
I
experience,
also,
work experience teaches you more than anything. I think in
right,
India, there is not the culture of I want to get into the workforce right away, even when I'm still a teenager or when I'm still in college. And that is a big advantage that people who grow up in other countries have because they start working when they are 14, 15 years old. By the time they are 25, they would have worked for 10 years, not necessarily in a tech
right,
field, but they would have at least had 10 years of, you know, communication with the customer experience, right? Customer etiquette, right? Public speaking, uh, conflict management. So
Yeah.
those are the skills that help you grow in a company. So we also in India
right,
should get used to that idea of letting our kids work as early as they can, along with attending school and attending college, right? So
right,
any experience wherever there is exposure to business, exposure to customer service is a good experience, irrespective of whether you're going to be in a customer service management role or not, even if you're going in a technical role. These skills where you get to interact with people in a professional capacity, where there is a customer on the other side and you are a service provider, those are very valuable skills and very highly appreciated by any employer in any role when you're looking for full-time jobs.
right. So,
Are you going to add something, Anup?
yeah, I was just saying, like, for someone who's starting right out of college, it might be a little difficult. For someone who's gained some experience, because I think most of us agreed that, someone who's actually gained some experience and who's pursuing their masters later would find it a little more easy to accommodate themselves overseas, right? As compared to someone who's coming right out of college. Because I think it's not just about education that you're pursuing when you move overseas. It's about everything. Like, you basically take care of yourself. Everything is work. Like, you have to cook, you have to like pay your bills, you have to travel.
Hmm.
Everything is time. Everything is your it's not just easy. I think for young students who move right at the beginning, it's gonna take some time. So when it comes to hybrid learning, it's good, but also it has its own pros and cons. Like, if you moved probably much earlier, there is even 6 months of time ahead of someone who's moving later, or as compared to someone who's come before. They would have really gained some experience. They would have gotten used to a bit of the lifestyle and also gotten to learn about, like, it could be as small things as etiquettes that Vishal mentioned, or even the rules, or starting to take care of yourself, or building a network. Everything plays a crucial role. So
Hmm.
it's good. Yeah,
I would like
Yeah.
to
Oh,
expand. Sorry, go ahead, Yamini.
no, 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 you can go ahead.
Got it. It says Anup has said this twice, and I feel like I wanna expand upon this topic: networking.
sure.
You can
Yeah,
network with a teacher, you can network with a colleague, you can network with a stranger on the street. I remember I was having coffee with friends and we were just catching up in San Francisco. And wow, turns out there's this person in front of us who works at Square, this company, a tech company, and she was so enamored by everything we were discussing. We were talking about 3D modeling and rigging characters and animation, and she started approaching us. We exchanged contact
right,
information. Yeah, and it just happens so naturally. You can network in anyone, which is an advantage. It is an advantage. No questions about it, about traveling abroad. Any person
right,
can be a contact, even a chatty, yeah, even a chatty person at the bus could be a network. Any teacher whom you had great relationships with can recommend you for a job, or like Anup said, a job, a letter of recommendation, a reference.
Hmm.
Anyone can be a network. And in my case, I went to college before COVID, and it was packed with people. College was packed with people in 2016.
right,
So many people in my college. After COVID, it's empty. Like many campuses, many parts of my campus had to shut down. People are studying online now. So the networking value is lost. In my particular case, I see it as it's lost. You can still network, but you shouldn't. I don't think you should spend thousands of dollars just to travel to the US without any college plan, without any studies in mind, just to network. No, it's network is a nice complement to the study. So for that reason, you should just network, any moment in your life, no matter the situation, no
Yeah,
matter where you are, in India, in Mexico, in the US, it's so relevant.
And networking will only happen when you are open to have conversation with people that you do not know. There are a lot of
exactly.
people who
Yeah,
Oh
come,
yeah.
yeah, there are a lot of people who come from India. They always surround themselves with people
Oh
from the same
no.
place they
yeah,
have come, right?
I know
Yeah,
So
that.
this
they
happened.
I
This
usually
has
the one,
happened to me. That's happened
yeah,
to me.
they will surround
yeah,
themselves with say people from the same state who speak the same language, and they will always interact with them only. And
Mm,
even
exactly.
if there's a college outing and there is an opportunity to interact with new people which they haven't met before, they will find it comfortable to make their own group.
I
They're
know.
just
Right.
interacting with themselves. They are missing out on a big aspect of networking with new people and building building new friendships, relationships, right? So,
That's
and
true.
you have to also be open and willing to make that eye contact and have, smile on your face and greet new people so that you can break the ice and have a small talk. And I feel that is another area where we haven't done much work in India when it comes to schools. We have not taught our kids to be more open to have conversation with strangers. So,
Right.
so if you want to get the most advantage of when you go abroad from all these networking opportunities, you have to be willing and you have to be open to talk to strangers. And I have seen come people who come to US, even from India, and who have done quite well, and they have become exceptional at it.
Yeah,
And these are Indian people, but they have become good at it after coming to US and being here for a while. Imagine if every one of
absolutely.
the Indians who came here was like that right away, immediately when they came. Because when
Yes.
they came, they had a lot more opportunity to meet a lot more people. They are in college setting, right? So they are in settings where they get exposed to a lot more people than compared to when they are a little older. So that's another area I would recommend people should work on even before they go abroad to a new country.
You mentioned,
Absolutely.
Vishal, the Toastmasters, right? There's organizations that can help with public
Yeah,
speaking,
Yeah, public speaking, Toastmasters or any public speaking group, speech and debate, those are other things
speech
which
and debate.
can make you a lot more confident in yourself. And
right.
maybe when you are a lot more confident in yourself, you will find more comfortable to reach out to new people and break that make an eye contact with a stranger and have a small talk. But even after having those great communication skills, if you are always comfortable, always in a setting where you are given an opportunity and you have a stage to where you are given a stage and that's when you talk, that will still not help in building that relationship with new people which you haven't met before. You still need to be willing to have that conversation with strangers. Like as we walk on the street, we don't have a culture in India where we make eye contact and say hello. Whereas in
Yeah,
the Western world, even if you're walking on the street and you don't even know those people, you'll still make eye contact and say hello, right? So those people who are a lot more comfortable doing it, they can take it to the next step. How's it going? How
exactly.
everything going well on your side, right? If you are meeting the people on a new city, how has the weather been, right?
Yeah,
Just talk about something which is like small stuff, right? That's how you keep building on that, and you say, oh, where do you work and how far is your drive, and how has the traffic been lately. So that's how you build on it, right? So but we got to get used to it before we come to this country or immediately adapt it, right? Even in India it will help if people start doing it in India itself. That's also help. I think many of them may be already doing it because India has evolved quite a bit since I left India. But I feel for the most part, in majority of the country, this is an area where everybody can benefit from.
just adding to that, what Visha was saying, one of the most things that I feel that for people who are moving overseas, right, is to start accepting that, this is going to be your place. Like, I've noticed a lot of people who move here, and of course, each country has its own, like, pros and cons. So people start to notice that the country is not giving them PRs or not giving them, like, the benefits that that is not in anybody's hand but you. they try to still glorify that, India was better, I should have stayed back, and I think I had a much better lifestyle there. I've heard a lot of people saying that. I think the key for someone is to start accepting that, this is going to be my place, and I've gotten a wonderful opportunity to, like, learn something over here, upskill myself. Like, it could be a very small thing as well. Like, at least for me, I think it's been an amazing opportunity once I've seen this transition after I've moved here. So acceptance is the key. Like, we should start feeling that, the positivity is very important. And yeah, but you will definitely have a lot of setbacks as well, but it's all just part of adulting. That's all. So
It's about the mindset, right? If people
mindset
feel that
comes back to that.
India was better for them, that maybe they it's reality for them. It might be, right? But
Mhm.
then they have to think about it in a way where the relocation to India, they will be happier, right? So,
Right,
like I said earlier, if you are miserable and you are unhappy, you're not going to lose your confidence. If you're going
mhm,
to lose your confidence, the quality of work is going to suffer. And if your
right,
quality of work is going to suffer, your career growth is going to suffer, right? So we have to surround ourselves in an environment where we feel happy. If they
right,
feel happy in Canada and they have accepted that this is the place I have to be, then they will do well in Canada. If they feel
right,
happy that India is good for them, then they will feel happier in India and they will have a very good career in India. Someone should not be miserable in a foreign country when they feel like they could have been better off in the home country, and someone should
mhm,
not be in a home country where they feel like I had an opportunity in a foreign country and I could have been better there. Choose a
absolutely.
lane. Choose a lane and decide on where you want to be and be happy in whatever you have chosen. Right? Look at the glass half full rather than looking at the glass half empty.
mhm, mhm,
Right.
But it's also a little bit complicated. Like I personally, I've seen a lot of people when I was in Australia. If like plan A doesn't work, then they will pivot and then do another course which is like more
Yeah,
in demand
don't
or
do
something
that ever.
like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
just
So
wasting valuable years of your life, right?
Yeah,
exactly. That was what I was thinking. What's the panel's whole view on this particular topic where students just pivot and then they forget what was the reason that they came there, and then they just start doing something else, which is, I think personally, it will just down the line, you'll just be unhappier, right?
Yeah.
You will be stuck in a job that you don't like. You are doing something that's not you, and then obviously that affects your work.
Yeah, I mean, we have so
right.
many examples. One of our colleagues,
So many.
one of our colleagues was in this exact same boat. He was so
Mm,
particular that he wanted to work in hardware. That's what he had studied. He had done a master's degree in computer architecture, or I think something like that. So after graduating 3 years, he tried his best to get a job in a hardware field. OPT exhausted, OPT extension exhausted, didn't get the H1B. Um, Took up another master's degree. So after doing say 2 + 3, 5 years, did another master's degree with slightly different title, again related to hardware, but maybe a slightly computer engineering or computer instead of maybe computer. Earlier one was electronics, the new was computer science. There was slightly difference between the two. That's all was what I remember. Did that again for 2 years. Did another 3 years trying to get a job. Right. So basically, 5 years in first masters, 5 years in second masters, 10 years down the line, he eventually went back to Bangalore, got a job in a top tier hardware company in India, which he could have gotten after the first one itself. So he wasted 8 years. So what he could have gotten after 8 years earlier, he got 8 years later. I mean, this extending your stay any way I can usually doesn't work. May work for some people,
right,
but usually because these are the most valuable years of your time of your life. With the amount of drive and energy you have at that age, and how much you can progress in your career by working hard in a company that you join, is more valuable than getting another degree and being able to stay in the country where you want to stay. Right? Get a job, high quality work in any country. even if there is a salary arbitrage and you're getting a fraction of what you would have made in a Western country, just by the experience that you will gain in 2, 3, 4 years, you will match the what you have gotten in a Western country, right? And there are other opportunities then to come back to US or Canada or UK, wherever you may have wanted to be, is because if you have reached that point in your career, so you have spent say 4 years at Intel, right? Or 6 years at Intel, and you are at that point in your career where Intel feels like you're a very valuable employee, you could ask for a transfer to another country, right? So there are so many people who get transferred from Intel in India to Intel in somewhere in the other part of the world, or Cisco in India to Cisco another part of the world. And people may not know it is easier to get permanent residency if you come through a transfer compared to if you come through as a student and you apply for H1B. Transfers go through L1, L1B, and L1A. And L1B has a benefit of that your spouse can work right away, whereas H1B doesn't have that. And also L1A, if you're coming as a senior position to the US, the green card is also a lot faster, only in a couple of 2 to 3 years compared to 20 to 100 years. So there are other ways. With your student way is not the only way. So getting into workforce and working anywhere in the world and getting good quality experience is a lot more important than just figuring
Prolonging it.
ways to stay in a country where you want to stay.
Mhm.
Right.
When it comes to pivoting, Yamini, I think I agree with Vishal. I think you should not like overextend your studies way too much. The reasons to stay in the country, get to work as soon as possible. And pivoting in terms of, okay, I tried studying video editing. I couldn't make it. But guess what? I'm an excellent filmmaker. And that pivoting is something I like because they are still part of the same industry. I think pivoting within the industry is much more, I don't know, fulfilling than say pivoting from something to things completely unrelated. So um, no on extending your studies indefinitely. Yes on getting a job as soon as possible any way you can, as long as you're happy with it. And also yes on pivoting if it's within the field, if possible, if it's within your possibility to make that change.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I only see that with Indian students a lot, where they pivot their career completely or just a
Yeah.
little bit. But yeah, just to wrap up the session, I just have one question to the whole panel. If a student or their parents come up to you and ask, should we send our child abroad? What would you answer?
Yeah, first they should get experience, and my recommendation would be get good quality experience in India. Good quality experience doesn't mean joining a big company. Good quality experience means
Right.
a place where you can get to do good quality work.
Mhm.
In my experience, the people who have done the best, who have gotten who have progressed in the career the most after they graduated, and I went to school and I saw them graduate, were not the ones who worked at top tier companies in India. The ones who actually were small to medium sized companies where they were given a lot of responsibility to work on projects end to end. The kind of experience they
Absolutely.
got, yeah, the kind of experience they got by working on projects end to end in a no name company, the expertise they gained from it was far superior to someone who may have come from a top tier college like Oracle, a top tier company like Oracle, right? So these people, when they came to US to do masters, their depth of understanding and hands-on knowledge of doing the work was so far superior to others that when they studied the course material, they were able to gain a lot more from it. And when it came to finding jobs, they were the most sought after. Someone from a top tier company coming in was not as sought after as them because they had more knowledge. So first you should get good quality experience in India. Doesn't mean a top tier company, which there's a big bias towards joining big brand companies. You should not look for big brand companies early on in your career. You should look for places where you can get to do good quality work, where you will be allowed to work on complete end-to-end projects, not like small cog in a wheel type of project, which is usually going to happen in a larger company, right? And then you should know what lies ahead. When I go for my masters, when I finish, what is going to lie ahead? As long as they have a complete picture of what lies ahead, as a family, this is going to be a different decision for everyone, right? If the family together feels like I don't care about the money, just go study there for 2 years and come back, right? And there's another family, okay, we're going to take loan, and it's going to loan is a big, it's based on the financial situation of the family, it's a big amount, and there is going to be that burden on his head and the parents' shoulders that okay, when he finishes degree or when she finishes degree, the loan has to be paid off right away because interest is getting accrued. Then you have to look at what's the probability of me finding a job right away. Will I be okay if the loan paying gets delayed for some time? Are there other ways I could gain the same knowledge without having to put myself through all that loan, right? On the burden of the loan. So the decision is not a yay or a nay, which will be applicable for everybody. The decision will be all depending on the family.
Right. Like I said.
Another thing people should know is that if they have a job in India, and especially now that people have work from home jobs, many people factor into their calculation that I will continue to do my job, what I do in India, in a foreign country. I've seen that a lot happening. And they do not realize that many countries do not allow you to continue your job. Even if the job is in India, even if you are an Indian citizen and job is in India, as soon as you land in the US, you are not allowed to work for any company. Even if it's a company in India, you cannot work. That's illegal. Your work status can be revoked for that. Your living status here, your student status can be revoked for that. You can be deported for it. When you are in the US, you can work only for on-campus placement. That also has to be approved, and it can only be 20 hours per week. Usually those on-campus placements pay a small meager amount, minimum wage or a little bit higher, and they are unrelated most of the time to your field of study. So your experience that you have in doing a certain job with a particular expertise that you have, which you may be doing in India, most likely, or if you are following the law, it's not going to carry over to the US. Maybe in some countries you might. You may have to look into that as well. If you intend to do the job, then look for countries which will allow you to continue that job remotely if that's your intention, because that's the money that you want to have to balance your budget and being able to manage the payment that you have to make towards your school or your living expenses.
Right. For sure. Yeah, I think that's right. First of all, uh, it experience is all that matters. Like there are two scenarios that I've noticed. Like there are students who have just finished their bachelor's and moving directly to do their master's, and there is another case where people have finished their bachelor's, gained some experience, and then moving for masters, right? So it can benefit in a lot of ways. Like uh, it could be as simple as someone doing assignments, right? So someone who's already gained some experience, built some web projects, or built some full stack web applications, or put in some time to build their portfolio, or have their own GitHub, uh, GitHub portfolio where they've added some projects, built some projects. I think those are the ones who are even able to, like, you know, uh, be a little more successful and have a softer edge when they're doing their course as well, as compared to the ones who have actually just stepped right out of college. So it is quite comfortable for someone who's gained experience and are able to, like, you know, pursue their masters further. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's really about introspecting and assessing your own situation, and then having
Hmm.
a plan and maybe a backup plan as well. Having the mindset of, putting that rigorous work that's needed to draw the benefits out of the choice that you make, right? It's not only the choice, it's the hard work that you put in after the choice, which makes that successful or otherwise. And yeah, I think that like everybody is, I think, mentioning it's about gathering those experiences which add towards your overall personality and let you, carry yourself into larger opportunities that come along your way.
Yeah. And then you also have to think about, if I go abroad, you know, am I going to miss my family in India? Am I going to miss my extended family in India?
Mhm.
There are so many people who come here and who immediately are like, I cannot live here and not be able to go frequently, and I will miss them. And I've seen many people who decide to go back.
Yeah.
I respect their decision, right? Because
Mhm.
they could clearly articulate that or understand that immediately after coming. But there are many
Mm.
who do not understand it right away, who are way down the line, and then they feel like if I go now, then it will feel like it's really going to be disappointment. I didn't even recover the money that I have invested,
Yeah.
right? And then they are unhappy and miserable because they feel like, there's a wedding happening in the family in India and I cannot go.
Yeah.
Now they're like, okay, I want to spend the money, but I want to go, but I just finished my graduation, but I'm being advised by
Mhm.
legal advisors that if I come back, there's a possibility that I'll be denied entry at the port of entry because
Mhm.
my degree course is complete. So even though they have completed degree now, even though they have the willingness to go, they cannot go, right? Now they are on an OPT. It's like, okay, when I get a job on OPT, then I'll go. Then they get the job on OPT, and I'm like, okay, considering I'm on OPT, and now many are telling me that OPT is not a safe place to go, safe time to go and come back because there are only 5 more months left in an OPT, and I should not go. Then they delay
Yeah.
their plans again. Then they go to OPT extensions. Like, okay, now I don't have an OPT extension. This is not good time for me to go. And when again they get the OPT extension, the same thing repeats. And you will find people who have not gone to India for almost 5 years, 6 years, and they are miserable, they're unhappy,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So people who care so much about their stay in the US, they are then become risk averse and they are not willing to take any. There's always going to be risk because this is a privilege. This is not a guarantee that they're going to let you in at the port of entry. You came, you finished your coursework. After you finished your coursework, the expectation was that you would leave. And when you leave, even though you may have optional practical training, it's a possibility that they may not let you in. Less likelihood, but there's
Mm.
a possibility. But now that the students are aware that there's a possibility I'm not going to be let in, then they become risk averse and they don't want to go, right? And then they become unhappy. So there are other kinds of students who's like, I'm going to go to India anyways. It doesn't matter to me. They go
Mm.
comfortably, they come back comfortably. They travel during their school years, they travel during their OPT, they travel their OPT extension, they travel during their H1B, right? They are happier and they actually, most of the time, if nothing happens, they're fine, right? But even if something happened, they would not care.
Mhm.
So don't make staying in this country so important that you impact your mental health.
Right.
Staying in a foreign country is so important, you impact your mental health. Live your life,
Sure.
focus on the skills, focus on enjoying your work, focus on doing good quality work.
Mhm.
What the place you are doesn't matter. As long as you do a good job anywhere, you're going to have a good quality of life.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. Make a list about why do you like so much the United States? Why do you like so much Canada? Why do you like so much Australia or anywhere in the world? Why is it? What does these countries have that your country doesn't have? And be prepared. Just be prepared with any eventuality. Um, Backup plan. Suchin said that. I like that. Have a backup plan. Be realistic. Be motivated. Be willing to sacrifice many things. Know that it's okay to go back if your budget allows it, if your life allows it to plan to have a plan B, and be proud of your work. Be
Yep.
proud of the accomplishments. And if everything else fails, well, you can always start your own company anywhere. Live for yourself, not for
And
others.
there are many who found it's too restrictive in the US. And the only reason they went back to India was because it was too restrictive. And then they went back to India, they did so well compared to how they would have done in the US, because then they had the opportunity to start companies or drive companies, lead, provide leadership. So it's being being in the foreign country is not the only way to succeed. There are lots of people who are succeeding in India. And some people
Right.
have that clarity of thought right away. Some people take time to get that clarity of thought. Some people do it out of compulsion and then they realize that, oh, there are so many opportunities in India. Right? Sachin had a very clear clarity of thought. He came here, he studied really well, but he was very clear. I want to go back to India. Right? So there are people like Sachin also, and people should realize that everybody doesn't go to America with an intention of staying there. There are many who go there to get exposure to a new country, understand and learn from new skills, experience a new type of education system, learn well, and then take those skills back to India and build something big with it. Right, Sachin, you want to say something about?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think Leo mentioned ties into this whole thing about making some sacrifices, because when you have a certain choice that you're going to make, I think, like if you know I'm going back to India, then you cannot have sometimes the extravagant life that you may, your friends and your roommates might be having. So you have to skip some trips, you have to skip some parties, and, on balance, you will benefit later. But, you can be aware when you're making those sacrifices that it is towards something fruitful at the end.
Right.
Yeah, and
That's
you probably had loans as well, right, Sachin? You had loans?
Yes, so I did take up a student loan. So one of the things that I had planned and I was able to execute was, once I landed in America, I was able to find a job. I came in maybe 10, 15 days early to get a head start on finding a job on campus. And fortunately, I was able to do that. So I was able to manage my education in a way that after my first year's fees, I didn't have to take any money from India. And I tried to minimize the loan the loan burden that I would have as much as possible, so that the repayment becomes easier. That definitely helped. But at the same time, I did take risks where I also initially was someone who felt I wanted to be in my field, coming from the electronics background, and I chose even unpaid jobs over other opportunities. But I had to make that pivot at some point when I realized that the hardware and electronic side of it is very expensive, very hard to get into. And, even a basic tool costs $100,000 in terms of licenses, whereas I could pick up software by using open source tools and learn them. So I think that too makes a significant difference to, I was a little late to make that pivot. I stayed in a little stubbornly on the hardware front, although the knowledge today benefits me a lot. Career wise, I would have probably grown a little faster than, otherwise, if I didn't, because I didn't pivot at the right time.
right,
Mm.
for sure. And one more thing that I'd like to add is, like, you know, always having some sort of a backup, as everybody mentioned. It's like it's not really going to be very easy on the get-go, at least in the current scenario, that you will be landing a part-time job. So you have so many expenses, not just from your education, but you have to pay up your rent, groceries. Like, you may want to hang out on a given day with your friends. So these all are different luxuries that you come up with. So if you think practically, it also makes sense for someone. Of course, this applies for someone who's taking up an education loan or who's going to make a significant financial investment, right? Um, just as you're adding up experience while you work after your undergrad, you're also saving up some money that you could potentially use for your overseas education. So having some sort of savings will definitely benefit you, um, once you're making a move to a different country, for sure. So yeah,
And if you have the expertise to do, freelancing work,
yeah,
like I said earlier, you want to continue your work in India because that you feel will substantially be able to pay for your living expenses or even your college. But if
right,
it gets cut, you cannot do it, then it's going to turn out to be very expensive. And if you
right,
have those skills to be able to continue your work in India or to be able to do freelancing work from anywhere in the world, then don't pick countries which are restrictive like the US is. Pick the countries which will
sure,
allow you to do that work while you are still in college. Because
exactly.
in reality, it will end up costing you many times more than it would otherwise cost you,
Right.
right? Know the rules of the country wherever you're going.
Mm. Okay, that was incredibly nuanced conversation. Thank you to everyone for sharing your personal stories and the industry insights, and to all the training and placement officers and college admins that are listening or watching this podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and keep listening to our new episodes. We also will be sending out a new issue of our HigherEd Horizon magazine, a digital magazine packed with insights on the hiring trends and new age placement strategies. So keep watching, keep sharing. Thank you for watching.